The guests were already impatient, and the groom was nervously waiting at the altar. When the church doors finally opened, everyone was in shock. The bride, who should have been immaculate in her white dress, entered completely dirty with her hair messy. Amid whispers and looks of surprise, what the groom did next left everyone speechless. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda's Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. Diana, a newly graduated young doctor, was about to experience one of the most special moments of her life. As she prepared for her wedding with Gabriel, she couldn't help but think about how it all began. A few years ago, during a vacation trip with her friends to celebrate the end of an important internship in medical school, fate brought them together in an unexpected way. The seaside town where they were staying was a paradise of golden sands and crystal-clear waters. The group of friends, composed of 5 young medical students, was excited to enjoy every moment away from the books and the stress of their studies. Among them, Diana stood out for her caring personality and her sense of responsibility. On the first night, the girls decided to explore the local nightlife. They found a lively bar by the sea, filled with young people dancing to loud music. The atmosphere was relaxed, with colourful lights flashing and the scent of the salty sea breeze mixed with the fragrance of tropical drinks. While her friends indulged in fun, ordering colourful drinks and dancing excitedly, Diana chose to stay sober. She knew someone would need to be in a condition to take care of the group and ensure that everyone returned safely to the hotel. Sitting on a high stool at the bar, she watched her friends having fun, smiling as she saw them so happy and carefree. As the night progressed, the bar became increasingly crowded. Diana noticed a group of guys who seemed to be celebrating something. Among them, a dark-haired, green-eyed young man caught her attention. He appeared to be having a good time, but something in his behaviour indicated that he was also looking out for his friends. Suddenly, a murmur spread through the bar. People began to move away from a specific spot on the dance floor, forming a circle. Diana immediately realised that something was wrong. She stood up and, with difficulty, made her way through the crowd. In the centre of the circle, a young man was lying on the floor, unconscious. The people around seemed panicked, unsure of what to do. Diana recognised the young man as the one who had caught her attention moments before. Her friends, already quite affected by the drinks, stood paralysed in front of the scene. Without hesitation, Diana took control of the situation. She knelt beside the young man, quickly checking his vital signs. Her medical mind worked rapidly, analysing the symptoms. Probably a cardiac arrhythmia, she thought as she immediately began the cardiopulmonary resuscitation procedure. The bar fell silent, except for Diana's firm commands directing someone to call an ambulance. She continued chest compressions, alternating with mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, determined to keep the young man alive until help arrived. Minutes that seemed like hours passed until finally, the ambulance sirens were heard. The paramedics arrived and took over the care, but it was thanks to Diana's quick action that the young man had a chance. The next day, still shaken by the events of the previous night, Diana decided to visit the local hospital to find out about the young man she had helped. To her surprise and relief, he was conscious and out of danger. Upon entering the room, she was greeted by a grateful smile from the young man who introduced himself as Gabriel. He had been informed about the woman who had saved his life and was eager to thank her personally. "I don't know how to thank you for what you did for me," said Gabriel, his voice still weak but full of emotion. "If it weren't for you..." Diana smiled, feeling a comforting warmth in her chest. "I just did what anyone would do," she responded modestly. "How are you feeling?" Gabriel explained that the doctors had discovered a congenital heart problem that he was unaware of. The incident at the bar had been a wake-up call, and now he would have to undergo treatment. Despite the circumstances, he seemed optimistic. While they were talking, Diana and Gabriel discovered they had a lot in common. Both were dedicated scholars with a strong desire to help others. Gabriel was graduating in environmental engineering and dreamed of developing technologies to improve the quality of life in cities. Before leaving, Diana gave Gabriel her phone number in case he needed anything. She did not imagine that this gesture would mark the beginning of a love story. In the months that followed, Diana and Gabriel maintained constant contact. At first, it was just occasional messages to check on each other. Gabriel kept her updated on his treatment, and Diana offered words of encouragement and medical advice. Gradually, their conversations became more frequent and personal. They discovered they shared the same sense of humour and a passion for science fiction books. The text messages turned into long nightly phone calls where they discussed their dreams, fears, and aspirations. Despite the physical distance, Diana had returned to her hometown to start her medical residency. While Gabriel continued his studies in another city, they grew closer and closer emotionally. 6 months after the incident at the bar, Gabriel surprised Diana by showing up at the hospital where she worked. He had travelled hours just to see her in person again. At that moment, when they embraced for the first time since the hospital, they both felt that something special was blooming between them. From that day on, Diana and Gabriel officially started a long-distance relationship. They met whenever possible, cherishing every moment together. On weekends, they would make video calls, watching synchronized movies or cooking the same recipe, each in their own kitchen. The love between them grew every day, strengthened by the mutual admiration and support they gave each other in their careers. Diana was impressed with Gabriel's dedication to his environmental projects, while he was proud of her commitment to her patients. 3 years passed, and finally, the moment arrived when their professional lives allowed them to move to the same city. Daily cohabitation only increased the love and respect between them. Gabriel proposed marriage during a picnic in the park where they had their first official date, and Diana accepted without hesitation. Now, finally on the day of the wedding, Diana was preparing to start a new chapter of her life. She was radiant in her white dress, an elegant model that highlighted her natural beauty. Her friends, the same ones who were with her on that fateful night at the bar, were helping with the final details. Nervousness and anxiety mixed in her heart as she got into the limousine that would take her to the church. Diana thought about Gabriel, the love they shared, and the future they would build together. She could hardly wait to see him at the altar, to officially begin their life as a couple. However, destiny had other plans for that day. As the limousine travelled along the road leading to the church, Diana spotted a car ahead zigzagging on the track until it finally lost control and fell into a ditch. The vehicle seemed to have crashed violently and the driver was visibly unconscious. Without thinking twice, Diana asked the limousine driver to stop. Her instinct as a doctor spoke louder than anything else at that moment. She knew she couldn't ignore someone in need of help, even if it meant delaying her own wedding. Diana ran towards the crashed car, her white dress dragging on the asphalt. Upon reaching the vehicle, she discovered that the driver, an elderly man, had probably suffered a sudden illness, perhaps a heart attack, which caused the accident. With care, but with the urgency that the situation demanded, Diana opened the car door and removed the man from the vehicle. Her hands, which should have been holding a bouquet of flowers, were now dirty with soil and oil as she provided first aid. Diana struggled to stabilize the patient, using all of her knowledge and experience. She performed chest compressions, checked vital signs, and did everything she could to keep the man alive until the ambulance arrived. Minutes passed until finally the ambulance sirens were heard. Diana continued the emergency procedures until the paramedics arrived, providing them with all the necessary information about the patient's condition and the measures she had taken. Only when the ambulance left, taking the man to the nearest hospital, did Diana realise her own situation. Her beautiful wedding dress was now torn and dirty. Her hands and arms were covered in grime, and her hair, once perfectly styled, was dishevelled. For a moment, Diana felt panic rising within her. She was late for her own wedding and in a deplorable state. Tears began to form in her eyes, but she held them back. Despite everything, she knew she had done the right thing. A life had been saved, and that was more important than any dress or ceremony. Diana returned to the limousine and asked the driver to take her to the church as quickly as possible. During the ride, she tried to compose herself as best as she could, but she knew she was far from being presentable for a wedding. Upon arriving at the church, Diana could hear the murmur of the guests inside. She hesitated for a moment before entering, her heart pounding in her chest. When the doors finally opened, a shocked silence fell over the guests. The guests stared open-mouthed at the bride, unable to understand what had happened. Diana could hear the whispers and see the looks of astonishment and confusion. She felt the tears welling up in her eyes again, this time impossible to contain. Gabriel, who was waiting at the altar, ran towards her as soon as he saw her. His eyes were full of concern and love. Diana began to apologize, the words coming out hastily between sobs. "Gabriel, I'm sorry. I ruined our special day. I had to help. There was an accident and—" Before she could continue, Gabriel wrapped his arms around her, not caring about the dirt on her dress. He looked into her eyes and said, with a voice full of emotion, "Diana, I wouldn't expect anything less from you than to save that life. You were born for this. It's who you are. I'm only here because you are this person who spares no effort to help others. And that makes me love you even more. This is just a dress. We'll sort it out." Gabriel's words calmed Diana's heart. She saw in him not just love, but the understanding and support that had always characterized their relationship. Gabriel called over some of Diana's bridesmaids, who were watching the scene from a distance, still shocked. The friends took Diana to a side room of the church, determined to find a solution. Miraculously, one of them had an extra dress in her car, which she had brought for the party. It wasn't a traditional wedding dress, nor was it white, but it was elegant and looked beautiful on Diana. While the friends helped Diana to get ready again, doing the best they could with improvised makeup and hairstyle, Gabriel also did his part. He exchanged his elaborate suit for a simpler combination, just dress pants and a white shirt. He didn't want his bride to feel out of place or diminished in any way. When Diana was finally ready to make her entrance, she saw Gabriel waiting for her at the altar, smiling with all the love in the world. Their new look, although not what they had planned, seemed perfectly fitting. It was a reflection of who they truly were. People who valued substance over appearance, love over conventions. The ceremony that followed was one of the most emotional that the guests had ever witnessed. The celebrant, moved by the story he had just heard, adapted his words to reflect Diana's act of courage and compassion. He spoke about how true love manifests itself not only in moments of joy but also in challenges and difficult choices. When the time for the vows came, there wasn't a dry eye in the church. Diana and Gabriel spoke from the heart about their love, mutual admiration, and commitment to always support each other, no matter the circumstances. At the end of the ceremony, when they were declared husband and wife, the church erupted in applause. What began as a day of confusion and worry turned into a celebration of true love and the values that really matter. During the reception, the guests couldn't stop talking about how unique and special the wedding was. The story of how the bride arrived dirty after saving a life spread quickly, and everyone was impressed by Diana's bravery and Gabriel's unconditional support. The couple danced their first dance as husband and wife, their eyes fixed on each other, as if the rest of the world didn't exist. At that moment, Diana realized that although her wedding had not been exactly as she had dreamed, it had been infinitely better. It was real, it was authentic, and it was a perfect reflection of the love she and Gabriel shared. As the night progressed and the guests celebrated, Diana and Gabriel had a moment alone. Gabriel took his wife's hands and said softly, "You know, when I saw you enter that church all dirty and dishevelled, I fell in love with you even more, if that's possible. You are the most incredible person I have ever met, Diana. And I can't wait to spend the rest of my life by your side, facing any challenge that comes our way." Diana, with tears in her eyes, replied, "I love you so much, Gabriel. Thank you for accepting me exactly as I am, for supporting me in everything. I can't imagine a life without you by my side." They sealed that moment with a kiss, knowing that what they had was rare and precious. Their wedding had not been perfect by conventional standards, but it had been perfect for them. And so, Diana and Gabriel began their married life not with a pristine white dress or an impeccable suit, but with hearts full of love and respect. Diana had married the man who would stand by her and support her in any situation, and never let her feel lesser. If you enjoyed, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment with a number from 1 to 5 to let us know how much you liked the story. Also, watch the video that is currently on your screen. See you soon.